Let's talk about my top 5 horror films of all time. Starting off with number 5, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, when I checked this one out as a late teen, I was severely disappointed because I had seen the remake, the prequel, and most of the sequels before watching the original film. And yeah, I was expecting something so much more disturbing and violent and gory, and that was my mistake because it took me a few watches, and especially on this last viewing, I watched it with my girlfriend and I absolutely fell in love with the original film because it doesn't have to have that Hollywood lighting that the remake has. And God knows that making the film was a living hell for the cast and crew, and it definitely shows on film. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. The character of Sally Hardesty, she goes through absolute hell throughout the film, and you can just tell on the actress's face that she just does not want to be there. That's something that you can't fake, and there's so many other things that make this movie just so iconic. I love the fact that it doesn't even feel like a movie. It feels dark and dirty and grimy, and you want to take a shower after watching it. You can just see the heat coming off the ground, shooting it in Texas. I mean, it just looks like a grueling nightmare, and that is what the experience is supposed to be for the survivors. The family, I think, really make the film, though. You have Leatherface, which I really like the way he's depicted in this film. He's really not going out and killing people just to do so. They are invading his home. He's just defending his territory, and you can just tell in that scene where he grabs his head that, he's kind of scared. He doesn't know what to do. You have the hitchhiker, who I think does a very good job at being humorous yet creepy at the same time. I just think the performance is really well done. He's such a wild card character that you don't know what he's going to do next, so you're kind of glued to the screen whenever he's on the scene. Not trying to be Slim Shady, it just kind of came out that way. But then you have the cook, who I think, does a good job holding the family together. I just really like the family. I think they're a great trio and they hold the film together. I think that this film has one of the best endings of all time, and it is a very grueling journey from start to finish, and I mean that in the best way possible. Number 4, Phantasm. It is a unique and surreal horror film. You're either going to probably love it or you're probably going to hate it, but I loved it because it had my brain going. What was reality, what wasn't. I love the character of the tall man. I think that he is a very underrated horror villain. His presence alone is just intimidating. Angus Scrimm does a beautiful job at portraying that character. I love the trio of Michael, Reggie, and Jody. I think it's one of the most underrated horror trios of all time. I love the whole family aspect of the Phantasm franchise. It's here in the original, but it expands in the franchise. But we're here to talk about the first one, and I know this one might not be for everyone, but for me personally, I adore Phantasm. I think it is such a unique horror film, and if I'm being quite honest, I think it doesn't get enough love. Number 3, John Carpenter's Halloween. What can I say about Halloween that hasn't already been said before? I think it is basically universally praised, and rightfully so, because this film is a textbook horror film. If you're looking to create your own horror film, you need to study Halloween because it has all of the ingredients for an instant classic. You have the score by John Carpenter, which is absolutely perfect. You can even take the main Halloween theme and show that to somebody that is not into horror, and they're going to know where that's from. It's from Halloween, arguably the greatest horror theme of all time. And then you have the trio of Dr. Loomis, Laurie Strode, and Michael Myers. 3 of the greatest horror characters of all time. And the ending to this film literally sends chills down my spine. It is a perfect ending, in my opinion. The film has tons of suspense. It is very slow burn, but to me, it is worth it, and it is one of the greatest horror films of all time. Number 2, Evil Dead 2. I watched this guy chainsaw his girlfriend, talk to his reflection, have his hand get possessed, fight his hand, chainsaw his hand off, go crazy, kill some deadites, become possessed, equip a chainsaw hand, and become an absolute badass hero. And just when I thought it was over, it wasn't. Is Halloween a better film than Evil Dead 2? Yeah, probably. I think most people would agree it is the better horror film, the more iconic horror film. But for me, Evil Dead 2 is just so much entertainment, so much fun. I have fond memories of it. It blew me away as an 8-year-old kid, and I can just watch it any time of the week, any time of the day, and I would have a great time. Number 1, John Carpenter's The Thing. Now, for me, John Carpenter is one of the very few horror directors that has banger after banger. I think that Halloween is a masterpiece film, and I think that The Thing is also a masterpiece film. If you guys want to argue about other John Carpenter films, you're talking to the wrong guy, because I will probably agree with all of them. I'm a huge John Carpenter fan, and this film in particular I think is a perfect horror film. The special effects by Rob Bottin, they're some of the greatest effects that I have ever seen, and they still hold up to this day. It really shows that practical effects is where it's at. The setting of the film I think is absolutely perfect, set in Antarctica, so there's really no escape. The isolation, feeling really does kick in throughout the film. The sense of paranoia I think is just unmatched compared to any other horror film. The actors do a phenomenal job with their characters. I really liked all of them, to be completely honest. There's not one that I really hate. It's another John Carpenter film that has the perfect ending, in my opinion. It's very ambiguous, very, left open to, your interpretation. And I love that about the film, and it is my favorite horror film, if you ask me today. Tomorrow, it might be something else. I love all these horror films that were on my list. I want to know what your list is. Leave it down below in the comments.